Hey everyone, and welcome to the locker room. I'm your co-host Ryan with Troy and Kyle here. We have a special guest, Scott Cooper. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Great to see you guys.
Yeah.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I'm already hearing good feedback from teammates and looking forward to a nice conversation here.
Awesome. We're already almost at 200 views on YouTube. So people are watching it.
That's great.
And hopefully as the weeks go on, more and more we'll get going and know about it. So you're our first special guest. So do you feel honored?
I feel very honored. Biggest honor of my life. So here we go. Now this is fun.
Happy St. Patty's.
Yeah, any opportunity to connect among fellow football players is a great thing.
Awesome. And Mustangs.
Well, that's
yeah,
Cal Poly football players.
Kyle, how are you?
Good, man. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Although, I don't know, Scott, I don't know what's up with that red wall. It feels like it should be more poly green than that.
Well, I think I wear so much green because I have all this swag. It's like I think I'd disappear if my walls weren't red. So it's a good contrast. Right?
It is
opposite of camouflage. Yeah,
that's
good.
Right.
Our dad was a Cal Bear, and so we had a rule in our house with no wearing red. So
that's true. This kind of looks like a Stanford helmet. I never really thought about that.
It does a little bit. It does, but we know the truth. You're good.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, what happened at Cal Poly this week?
Yeah, I mean, this is I think it's really important just from time to time, and maybe every week when we do this, but just to kind of look back at the 7 days that were, and some pretty impressive kind of results across multiple programs. I think if we think back to Don's video that he released a week and a half ago or so, he talked about the success of fall sports. I would say spring sports, from what I can tell, is really off to a great start. And so you got to start the program just by talking about baseball and, frankly, giving a tip of the proverbial cap and a round of applause for those boys to take down Ohio State. I mean, those are the types of wins, right? Those are the types of things that not only put your program on the map as a baseball team, but really puts the school on the map in such a positive light. And so congratulations to our Cal Poly Mustang baseball team for taking the series against Ohio State. And they follow that up with a Wednesday home game against UNLV. Another, this is important on the West Coast, a West Coast school, and they take care of those guys 19-7 at home on Wednesday. And then they followed up with a weekend series, the first conference series of the season against Northridge. And they've started off 2-0. With big wins on Friday and Saturday, and now they're, as we're recording this, actually just starting the game. So lots of good things happening in the baseball program. Softball program also took care of business yesterday against Northridge, beating them 3-2. And then lastly, just to shout out our women's golf team actually went down to Tulane, the Tulane Classic. And they took second place out of 17 teams that were there. And so we want to make sure that we're a program that's giving love to all of our sports at Poly. I think that we can all attest that, look, we played football, all of us, but there is a special bond between all of the athletes at Cal Poly. We know what it takes to compete at that level and go to school and live in SLO. We have so much in common with those fellow brother and sister. So congratulations to those programs. And then I would just, not right now, but encourage everyone just to go look at yesterday's results. So Saturday, a bunch of our teams competed. Our women's beach volleyball team, I think, went 3-0 on the day yesterday. Men's tennis did I think we swept the day yesterday as Cal Poly Athletics. And so positive signs. We talked about it last week. I think lots of really good momentum, and just really excited to see the success of all our programs in the spring so far getting off to a good start.
It's really cool to see other programs beating big time programs and bringing us into the light of big time sports. So a lot of people don't underestimate us Mustangs, but we're going in there getting big time wins. Like beach volleyball. I mean, we're one of the best beach volleyball programs in the country, ranked number 9. I think in the next few years we'll be competing for a national championship in that sport. And what a fun sport that is. And a perfect mesh where Cal Poly can really dominate geographically and and be one of the premier programs in the country. So thanks for that update, Kyle.
Absolutely. No, congrats to the teams. Doing great.
Troy, how are you doing?
Oh, doing good out here in Patterson, California. Just getting ready to start the farm life all over again. Another year, start planting tomorrow. So big day.
Oh, wow.
Getting those tomatoes in the ground tomorrow.
Good luck to you and the rest of the farmers in our beautiful Central Valley making all our food, and thank you guys for what you do.
Well, pays the bills, kinda. Hopefully,
keep prices low for us, please. My food bill's out of control.
Sure. Are you still ordering tomatoes from restaurants, but then pulling them off your burgers and stuff? Is that still your strategy?
it's a weird situation that I'm in because for a living I grow almonds and tomatoes, and I don't like tomatoes, and I'm allergic to almonds, and so. No, I never ordered no tomatoes because I feel like that would be sacrilegious, but I don't eat them.
Pulls them off first thing.
I do like ketchup. Ketchup's good.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I want to introduce Scott Cooper, and Scott Cooper is near and dear to my heart. I just kind of wanted to give everyone a little background. I moved down to Orange County a couple years after I got done playing, and Scott Cooper reached out to me. I don't know if it was via LinkedIn or whatnot. And Scott lives down in Orange County, and he takes me out to lunch. We bond. We have a great connection, and just that. Hey, there's an alumni that's down here that wants to get to know you, that wants to get to plug you into that local alumni chapter, wants to introduce you to other Mustangs that he's friends with in different eras. That was really special. And Scott is one of those guys where, and I told this on the phone, we were talking, I said, Scott's the perfect Cal Poly alumni. He's sweet, he's generous, he's humble. He loves Cal Poly. This guy bleeds green and gold. He's very involved. And so I kind of would love to kind of dig into how he got involved later in his, after his playing career and how that got into it. But Scott, thanks so much for hopping on the locker room here. And we're so happy to have you.
No. Thanks for some very kind words from you. And I've enjoyed getting to know all of you. I've known Colin Ryan the best, and just meeting Troy now. But it goes back. I watched Kyle against San Diego State and at Qualcomm. I know your dad, and I've met your mom. So it's you guys have given so much to Cal Poly. This is great, and I appreciate what you guys are doing here. And really, what you just described, Ryan, it's what I've tried to do with everybody. And it's like Kyle was saying before. I mean, just like our fellow brothers and sisters who played sports at our same time. Someone from a different era, there's an automatic, you're off to a good start, right? You've been through something together. There's a level of trust to begin, and the person's hardworking and smart. It's just, sorry, that's what you're gonna get with the Cal Poly football player who's now out in the business world, and you are all those things. And it was nice to develop a friendship and a working relationship when you were down in Orange County.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Scott.
Well, hey, Scott, maybe as we continue to kind of move forward, if you wouldn't mind, and I know we know a little bit about your kind of background, but maybe if you wouldn't mind just starting off kind of reminding us kind of the era in which you played and the positions that you played and just kind of all the things relative to your kind of Cal Poly experience.
Yeah, you bet. So starting with football, I started at Cal Poly in 1986. I was a redshirt that year. I walked on. It was one of a few other opportunities that I had. Not a ton. I was decent in high school, but nobody was knocking down my door to offer a scholarship or anything like that.
Where'd you grow up?
LA, West LA. So
okay.
Came up and I redshirted that year. Coach Sanderson was the head coach at the time, and then he retired after that, and by January of that year, Lyle Setensich came in he was the Boise State coach before that, and came to Cal Poly. And so I played 87 to 90. I was offensive guard. I was a lot bigger then, and I've lost most of the weight and put some of it back on as I've gotten over 50. But but had a just I just, the thing I always say about Cal Poly, I can draw a straight line between, almost everything good that's happened to me in my life and Cal Poly, and in particular football, because they're really all the things that we've talked about before have led to, a lot of really good things in my life. So I had a wonderful experience. I'm in touch with so many of my teammates. I'm proud to see how successful so many of them are. And I'm really happy that I still maintain such a great relationship with so many of them. It's really, as you know, when you see a teammate, particularly one you haven't seen in a while, it's a different way you hug them, and there's a different way you grab their hand and everything else. And it's a wonderful thing we all share.
Did you stay in the dorms then your freshman year on
Yeah.
campus?
Yeah, I was in Sierra Madre in the
Yeah,
dorms.
baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I was there, and I mean, then after that, just out and about in town, and then I was in a fraternity house the last 2 years. So there are actually quite a bit of, or a fair number of football players when I played were in the one house I was involved in. So
Which
That's
frat was that?
interesting because,
Beta Theta Pi.
in our era, there wasn't a huge mix of fraternity and football. And so I think as the years have gone on, that's changed. And talk about that experience.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because there were some guys when I first joined, but then there was sort of a period, a couple year period where it was very uncommon. And I think most of the social stuff would be with, among your teammates and things like that. I don't think our coaches really cared one way or another, as long as, we showed up and played well and everything. But that was just something I wanted to do in my life, and I thought it would just expand things. And then turns out a bunch of teammates who I really liked a lot ended up joining the same group as well. So it became a big part.
And what major did you have at Cal Poly, Scott? I don't think you mentioned that.
I was business, and I'll tell you, on these things where things lead directly back to football, one of them's how I got into my career, because I was business. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to concentrate in. I knew probably something financial, and then I wanted to do an internship. But as you guys know, there's almost no time to do an internship, and summer is 5 weeks for a football player. And so I talked to someone in the career counselor office, and they mentioned that, well, you could go work for an accounting firm because they hire people in the winter, which is the only time we have off, right? And so I thought, well, I have no interest in being a CPA. And they said, well, it doesn't matter. Just go. You'll get some experience. It'll look good on your resume. And I went and I worked for KPMG, which is one of the big accounting firms. And I thought, I'm actually pretty good at this, and I like it. And so that ended up being my first job, and I became a CPA, and then went back to graduate school, and ultimately became a financial executive. So I mean, it's interesting that I'm sure we all have those in our life, where some things that kind of happen by accident turn into a big part of your life, and that was all due to football. So.
Let's just say Scott is much better at math than all of us put together. Maybe.
I'm good at business. I'm good at business math. We'll let our engineer teammates be the ones that do the heavy lifting on that.
Well, I know Troy. Go for it, Ryan.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I know Troy's going to ask some more questions specific to kind of your professional career, but Scott, you graduated Poly, you have a business degree, KPMG. Was there anyone, did you go down to Orange County area to start? And was there anyone that kind of took you under their wing the same way that you did to Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I ended up, I'm in Orange County now, but I'll answer that in a roundabout way. I actually moved a lot before I went to graduate school at the University of Michigan, and then was in the Bay Area for a while. And I've been back in Orange County, but actually a good connection when I got back connected with Cal Poly, and we'll talk some more about this as well. But one of the alums who's a couple years ahead of me, Joe Colina, who I think some
Yep.
of you have met.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I connected with him, and we can talk about that later, more of that, but he definitely helped get me more involved with the program, and some things we can talk about in a little bit that I've done along the way there. So yeah, definitely I've there, and also through, I think Ryan, we both did a few things with a local alumni club in Orange County as well, not football related. But there are all kinds of outlets for that.
There are. Yeah. On a side note, if people don't know this, but Cal Poly's Orange County alumni chapter, I think, should be the replica. That should be the example for all of them. They are extremely involved. They're very dedicated. They do tons of social get-togethers. They go to UC Irvine basketball games when Cal Poly's in town. They do a lot of cool things. So that's a really strong chapter. And kudos to all you Orange County alumni chapter out there. You guys are awesome.
I think you'll recall too, and interestingly enough, I think this is the 10-year anniversary of when we were in the basketball tournament, and I think you were down here, Ryan, when that happened.
I was.
You'll recall.
We went to Dave and Buster's.
And I mean, there were
Right?
it got so full. We had a whole section. There were hundreds of Cal Poly alums that went to that. That was so much
That's so fun.
It was a great
That's
time.
great.
Really fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
That was a really fun time. Yeah, that was 10 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So Scott, you met your wife at Cal Poly, right?
I did, and again, it'll be a recurring theme of Cal Poly connection. So my wife and I were set up on a blind date. I was the offensive guard, and my center, who stepped on my feet all the time, Eric Patrick. I was out playing golf with him, and he was dating a woman, and he said, hey, there's this party, and my girlfriend's friend needs a date, or she wants her to come along, but she doesn't have a date. Will you go? And sure enough, that's where it started. My wife, wasn't a huge sports fan, anything like that. We hit it off really well, but she's become a big supporter and everything else in sports and what I like to do with Cal Poly, and she comes along.
I'm bringing a teammate. Oh, the quarterback? No, better. The guy that blocks for the quarterback.
Yeah, at least I lost. Yeah, that's what she was thinking, that it was the guy that it snapped the ball to. That's probably why she agreed to it. But luckily I'd lost most of the weight by that point, so I was presentable at least.
So your whole family is Cal Poly, your kids, everybody?
Yeah, they are. My kids grew up. Both my kids, like we mentioned, that San Diego State game, my kids were probably 7 and 5 when we went to that game down in San Diego. And but they grew up around it, went to SLO tons of times, and like most children, they throughout their life it said, that's the last place I'll go, because mom and dad went there, everything else. But what they really realized over time, when it really came time to make a decision and they got in, which, as we all know, is extremely difficult now. They were very excited, and both had wonderful experiences there. Now, actually, to continue it on, my daughter Natalie, her fiance Miguel, she met him there, and they're now engaged to be married next March. So,
congrats!
Congratulations!
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, I met my wife at Cal Poly, and I think out of my wife's family, all but one person went to Cal Poly, and in our family, I think Kyle's wife's the only one that go to Cal Poly. We're a Mustang group.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
And Kyle's wife was an Aztec. Wasn't she at the game when we
She
beat
was.
them?
She was there. Yeah, I like to remind her of that often.
I love it.
Yeah, that works
She's
out.
she's a converted Mustang now.
And Scott, what did your kids major in when they were at Poly? Did they follow in the footsteps of business?
They both had kind of their own independent ways of them. My son's probably a little more closer to what I did. He was information systems in the business school, so he's in San Diego now and does kind of IT related. And then my daughter's a teacher. She was child family development major, and she teaches transitional kindergarten in Santa Clarita. So we're about
Wow. Great.
our kids are each about an hour from us, one north and one south, which is wonderful.
That's a blessing. Don't tell my parents that. They're never been too happy that I moved out to Texas.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's
Lucky.
great.
Well, and then Scott's too humble to say this, but he's had a very successful professional career. He's as humble as it gets, but you've done extremely well, Scott. We're so proud of you. And I guess my next question, Scott, you moved down to Orange County, having a family. You're running these companies and getting companies off the ground. How did you get plugged into Cal Poly afterwards, and what kind of that experience was for you? And
yeah, so
if you could kind of touch on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I've always, I think the one thing I've always felt about my Cal Poly, particularly for football, is just I felt grateful for it, right? I eventually earned a scholarship, and and it just I'm so proud of the fact of what I did, as I know you guys are as well. And I always felt like I should give back in some way. So I didn't really have the means to do anything meaningful in the first, for a while. And as you guys know, when you have young kids, it's kind of tough. But while I was building, you mentioned my career, I've worked in, after the CPA firm for the most of what I've done for the last 20 years. I've worked with medical device companies, first as a controller and then as a CFO full-time in 2 companies. And we develop new technologies. You raise money for an idea, get it off the ground, like you said, and then either the company goes public or you sell it at some point. And I've been able to do that. And, fortunately, a couple of them have been where we've sold them, which has been a nice deal for me and my family. So along the way, about when I mentioned connecting with Joe, that was about the time where my kids were getting to the age where they didn't need quite as much of our time. My wife did most of the effort for that, but I was realizing I had more of my own time, and I thought, I tried a few things for volunteering. Nothing really excited me that much. And eventually I was just like, what do I really care about? And I thought, and that was Cal Poly, in particular, athletics and football. And that was right around the same time that Joe Colina was thinking about restarting a golf tournament that used to be run in Southern California called the SoCal Classic. So that's how I got back kind of formally connected. And then I met, that was, like you mentioned last week, Ryan, a lot of what our alums kind of from, maybe 10 years or more back probably don't realize that we really never had people like Ashley Offerman before. Maybe we did, but they were in a smaller role or they were the only people. But we now have more resources than we did in the past. And I guess it's not fair to say we didn't have people there before, but I think we have more support now than we have in the past. And that's why I kind of clone my time joining with the joining back up with Cal Poly and getting more directly involved was right around the same time that Dr. Armstrong came to the school, Don came, Ashley started. So I developed a relationship with Ashley and Don, and then eventually I was on a board for the business school, but when that finished, they asked me to join the athletic director council, which I've been on for the last 3 years, which, like I've told you, I was an average offensive lineman, and I joined it, and next thing you know, I'm sitting with the other football rep, which is Ted Tollner, and I'm like, okay, here's Ted Tollner. Here's
amazing.
And Chipson, and he is just the nicest man, and it's been really nice to get to know him, and what he's done in his collegiate coaching career and NFL career. So he's an amazing man and a very nice person too. So
the Ted Tollner and the whole Tollner family. I mean, talk about just salt of the earth people.
Completely
Unbelievable people.
But I even, going kind of talking it back to, as a compliment to him, but also some of the stuff that is available now. I was at a game this fall, and he and his wife came to the game, Barbara, and I was telling him, you should come over to the home team barbecue, and so, or in the tailgate. And he said, okay, I'll come over, but don't make a big deal of it. That's just how he is. And I mean, there's just this crowd of people around him, and like, I'm not making a big deal, but people are going to want to see it. So.
Hey, Scott, as much as you can, because I know a lot of this is probably fairly confidential, but like, what are the types of things that on this council that they're bringing in, kind of running by you guys? And I'm sure it's not just men. I'm sure there's women as well. But who's all on this council, and what are the types of things that the athletic department is bringing to you?
Yeah, so it's it's I think the intent of it is what the name implies. The Athletic Directors Council. So this is a group of alums, men and women, almost all of whom have played sports at Cal Poly. Others are just those who care about it, and they're just people. It's a group of people who Don can bring certain ideas to for thought and consideration. And it's also more tactically, there are ways that they can talk about the department can talk about priorities, and we can help maybe find ways to fund that, right? Whether it's among people in the group or it's going with contacts with other people to help with some of the fundraising for that. And most sports are represented on it right now. We have, and it's you can look it up online. It's listed out there, but right now there's 3 football players on it. Aside from Ted and me, it's Mike Fisher, who was a quarterback in the 90s, and another very successful businessman, great guy, and he's been very, very interested in helping Cal Poly.
So Scott, if you haven't been plugged into Cal Poly athletics or Cal Poly football in 20 years, what would be the one thing that would surprise you the most? If you got back involved or showed up to a game day, or what's the number one thing that would blow your socks away?
I think the game day experience is just improved. It's always been fun, but I think I see it every week when I go to games in the fall, how the kinds of times people have and the amazing efforts that people, the home team and others who they've established. If you've not seen it, they have a tailgate that's for really friends and former football players, and it's run by local former football players in the SLO area, and it's just it's incredible, the atmosphere. They do a wonderful job. The barbecue and everything on the lawn is great. You see the team come down, and then the stadium's looking pretty nice right now too. And 20 years ago, it looked nothing like that. So, and you'll now see this fall the Madden Center start going in, and also in the other end of the stadium, you may not be aware, but they're redoing a whole concession area there as well, which will be sort of, I think Don described it as kind of like a beer garden, which should be nice and kind of overdue. So I think anybody, if they time traveled forward and saw that, they would recognize it, but they would be pleasantly surprised at how nice it is and what a great time they have.
I can't tell you how many people that through all of our careers, and it's only gotten better and better, never been to a Cal Poly game before. We invite them because they know us. They go up to go watch a 6:00 game up at Alex G, and they come home lifetime Mustang fans. It is a wonderful game time experience, and you have to go to experience it.
Well, I know your dad's Cal Bear athlete, and my best friend is as well. He was the captain of the track team at Cal, and his daughter's to the point where she's at the University of Virginia, and he has time. So he's come down the last 2 years, and the first game he went to, he'd been the week before Cal had played Notre Dame, and he was back in South Bend for that. Now, I'm not for a second saying it's the same experience, but he told me, he said, look, this is obviously it's not the same size, because this is awesome. It's as good of an experience, talking about the pregame experience and everything. And
well, it's also 75 or 80 degrees. It isn't. We have that on South Bend.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that's part of it. Absolutely. You're in shorts, and it's everything's outside and wonderful, and you're surrounded by natural beauty. So,
Scott, when you were when you were coming in
Go ahead,
and, maybe doing a recruiting trip, or you were a walk on, so maybe that
Yeah.
wasn't, but
I
at some
got a
point you
recruiting
probably,
trip.
you got a little love. Did they
Yeah.
avoid the stadium with you like they
I,
did with me?
That's funny. You should say that. I never thought about that, but that wasn't included on the tour.
For some reason, it's funny. They showed me the beach about 5 times.
Yeah,
They showed
yeah,
me, but for some reason, I never got to see the stadium. I had to do that one on my own. But
yeah.
that's now.
No weight room, no locker room, no stadium.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't show those.
Now there's a lot more to show now. That's funny. I'd never thought about that, but that's true. That's how they actually had for my recruiting trip at the time. They had a couple of women who were students that took us around. So we were all, we thought that was awesome. They stuck to most of the campus.
That's awesome. Hey Ryan, how are we doing on time? I know we're trying to keep these close to like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think we have time for one or two more questions. So
Awesome. Well, hey Scott, one of the questions that I would have for you is just any advice for kids coming out of school, or maybe guys that are kind of reaching that phase of hey, maybe I'm in a situation where I've got some more time and I want to kind of reach back and help some folks out. Like, what are some ways, like tactical ways, that we can connect with more alumni?
Yeah. This is a passion for me on connecting alums, and I do it at the local level with my teammates and whenever I can, because it's, these are great people who should be together. And I think I've been involved in several different ways. I know for several people on the home team, which is this organization originally founded in SLO of local alums, and they've kind of taken charge to organize each era. And they've tried to establish a group era leader for each group. So that's one way for sure. There's someone at the time you played who you can contact and get in more close connection with. And then I'd also just encourage, now there's staff members. It's not about money too. If you want to be connected to Cal Poly, if you're capable of it and you can. I mean, I know a lot of times people will be reluctant. They see someone from the athletic department. Trust me, that's not the first thing anybody's going to ask from the athletic department. But I mean, I would challenge anybody who wants to get back involved. It should be pretty easy to find someone, at a minimum, reaching out to someone in the athletic department. But I'd reach out to fellow teammates, and I don't think it would take long to find someone who kind of knows what's going on.
Well, that's kind of our hope.
Scott, last week, Kyle threw a question at me, and I'd like to throw the same question at you this time. If you had an afternoon to spend in San Luis, what's something you would like to do? What's something you would recommend other people need to do while they're in San Luis?
But you can't say Firestone, because I feel like that would be the first thing everyone would say. We got to take that one off the list.
I'll date myself, but I'd say Bull's Tavern would have to be at some point. Right?
So did you do a bowl sweat on your 21st?
I didn't, but I did on my. I'll tell you a funny story for that. But I did one the morning of my son's graduation with my wife standing on the bar, so at 6:30 a.m. So I've got that going. But it is actually what's on my 21st birthday. Two of our kind of younger assistant coaches were bartenders at Bowls part-time. So I went in there, and after a few. And so what was funny though is my birthday's May 10th, so it's right after spring ball had ended, and I had a meeting with my Coach McDermott, who was the offensive line coach, who's kind of had a deep, hello Coop, how are you doing? And I walked in, and it was just, he was laughing when he saw me walk through, because he'd heard from the coaches, and he's like, I heard you had a very nice evening. It's good to see you.
You got bowled over, huh?
Yeah. So I guess I'd recommend, if I had an afternoon, bowls, and try to keep it to a few hours, because it can extend pretty long otherwise.
The afternoon can get away from you.
You won't have an evening if you spend your afternoon at Bulls.
That's true.
That's awesome.
Well, Scott, I'll let Ryan close this, but I'm encouraged because, like, listening to what Ryan's experience was with you, Scott, and when I think of my experience kind of post playing, entering the workforce, I've got two guys both Cal Poly alums. One's Mike Bush, who played football in the 80s at Cal Poly. He totally took me under his wing. Peter Oppenheimer, who was the CFO at Apple at the time, he was very gracious in giving me time and advice. And like, truly, I contribute a lot of the opportunities and just the experience that I've had in my career because of those guys, those Cal Poly alums that were gracious enough to kind of reach back and help a younger generation Mustang kind of as they're starting out. And so I want to just say, like, thank you so much for doing that for Ryan and for those that have come after you. And so it really warms my heart. And that's part of the heartbeat behind this podcast is like, we want to highlight some of those opportunities and kind of reignite the connections, if you will. That's like the times that we were there were a little bit different, but the experiences, right, are very similar. And that's the common thread that we all share. So really encouraging to have you on, man. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I encourage us all to do it. Anybody who watches this, if you reach out to a teammate or reach out to Cowboy, you won't regret it. It's great the more we can connect with each other, whether it's in business or socially or any other way, or just have a good time. It's time well spent and really positive.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up on time. I just wanted to make the announcement that the home team spring barbecue and reunion is April 27th. Scott, will barbecue and then watch the game, the spring ball game. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think it's a little earlier this year. It'll be, the games, I think, if I'm recalling right, it's earlier in the day, and then the grill and all that stuff will be, I think, around 2, something like that. So probably all in, it's about 11 till 2. And if anybody who hasn't been to that, that's a lot of fun. It's a good time. And I know last year we had probably 150 football alums. It's pretty good attendance and good time.
Awesome. Well, Scott, you made it through the locker room. How did it feel to be back?
It was fun, and just like you said, the time will go quick. It did. So
it did.
Really, really a pleasure, you guys. I love what you're doing, and I'm gonna get the word out to my era, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of your other guests in the future. There will certainly be more talented football players than me, but there'll be no one else who has as great a love, right?
Absolutely, Scott.
Amazing.
Okay.
We can't thank
Scott,
you enough.
Okay.
Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon. Appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. What a good guy, huh?
Such a great dude.
Yeah.
Doesn't get any
He's
better
awesome.
than that.
Yeah.
It's those guys, those types of guys are what makes you proud to go to this school, and I think there's so many of those types of people. I don't think we've historically done a great job of highlighting that and being super intentional with creating those collision points for the different generations. And so if this can be one of those mechanisms to do that, I think then this podcast will start to serve a lot of its purpose. So really thankful for him for coming on. What a great dude.
And what's so cool is you don't need to have been a superstar at Cal Poly to be involved, and to feel connected again. Like you just, you can shine later, and you don't have to win the Buck Buchanan like yourself, Kyle, to want to be back involved, and people still want to chat with you. And that's what's so awesome is it doesn't matter what your experience was in terms of playing or wins or losses. At the end of the day, we're all trying to live life and raise families and be good humans and citizens and as we move forward. So he's a prime example of that. So what a great guy.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a great week, and we'll keep rooting for our Mustangs, and thank you all for joining us. And we just encourage everyone that gets this, watch it and share it, please, and help us get the word out. We want this to be a kind of an inclusive place where everyone that's interested in Cal Poly in general, Cal Poly athletics or SLO, they can come and just hear some fun discussion on what it's like to be a Cal Poly Mustang and an alumni of such a great institution. So please do share this if you see it.
And the locker room is on.
Thanks again to Scott for spending his Sunday afternoon here. That was awesome. Sure was nice to hear from him.
And the locker room is on Instagram. It's the Shoddy Locker Room, and we're on Facebook. We're obviously posting our videos on YouTube, and you can email us at theshoddylockerroom@gmail.com. Love to hear from you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
See ya.